19 months. That's how long Sloane Hartley had been running from a number she couldn't escape. $847,000. Not a mortgage, not a business loan. Medical debt. The kind that devours your future one collection call at a time. The envelope arrived at 3 in the morning during her overnight shift at the veterinary emergency clinic. Heavy, black, her full legal name embossed in silver letters that caught the fluorescent lights. The courier who delivered it wore a suit that probably cost more than her monthly income, back when she had real income. He didn't ask her to sign anything, just handed it over, turned on his heel, and disappeared into the November rain. Sloane's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, a single sheet of premium cardstock. Meridian Solutions Group. A company name she'd never heard. The message was brief. Your debt portfolio has been acquired. We request a meeting to discuss resolution options. Address below. You have 48 hours to respond. This is your only opportunity. The address made her stomach turn. Warehouse District, the part of the city where legitimate businesses didn't operate. She should have thrown it away, should have recognized it as a scam or worse. But when you're drowning, you don't question the hand reaching down. You grab it. 600 days ago, Sloane had been a cardiac surgery resident at Presbyterian General Hospital with a promising career trajectory. Then her younger brother Felix collapsed during a college basketball game. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a genetic time bomb neither of them knew they carried. He needed an immediate heart transplant. 22 years old, no insurance. Their parents had died in a ferry accident 3 years prior, leaving them with nothing but each other and a paid-off Honda Civic that barely ran. Sloane liquidated everything. Savings, retirement account. She took out loans against her future earnings as a surgeon, maxed out 7 credit cards, and when that wasn't enough, turned to private medical financing companies with interest rates that should be criminal. Felix got his transplant. He survived. But Sloane became a ghost. 80-hour work weeks couldn't cover the payments. She moved into a basement studio apartment where mold grew in the corners and the ceiling leaked when it rained. Ate ramen and whatever expired food the hospital cafeteria was throwing out. Watched her credit score plummet from 750 to 412. Collection agencies called before sunrise, after midnight, during her shifts. The numbers kept growing. Interest compounding, fees multiplying. One agency sold her debt to another, then another, each adding their own charges until the sum became abstract, so large it stopped feeling real. The hospital noticed. Administrators pulled her aside with concerned expressions that barely masked their liability calculations. She was making errors. Nothing that harmed patients, but missing documentation, showing up exhausted. They suggested a voluntary leave of absence, medical speak for disappear before you become our problem. So she did. The veterinary clinic didn't ask questions, paid cash for overnight shifts. She also picked up weekend work as a medical consultant for a personal injury law firm, performing under-the-table insurance physicals for immigrants who couldn't afford legitimate doctors. Nothing illegal enough to lose her medical license permanently, but desperate enough that she stopped recognizing herself. Now this envelope, this mysterious meeting, this impossible promise of resolution. Sloane researched the address during her break. The building was owned by a shell corporation, traced back through 3 layers of business entities before she found a name that made her blood go cold. Kovar Holdings. Everyone in this city knew that name. The Kovar family had run the underworld for 3 generations. Shipping companies, real estate, waste management, legitimate businesses on the surface, but everyone understood the truth underneath. The FBI had been trying to build cases for decades. Witnesses recanted. Evidence disappeared. The current head of the family, Dante Kovar, had never been formally charged with anything, yet his reputation preceded him like a shadow that swallowed light. Sloane almost didn't go, almost convinced herself it was too dangerous, too suspicious. But 47 hours and 53 minutes after receiving the envelope, she stood outside the warehouse as the sun set behind the industrial skyline. The building looked abandoned. Rusted loading docks, windows covered with grime and newspaper. She raised her hand to knock. The door opened before her knuckles touched wood. A man in a charcoal suit stood there, early 30s, expressionless. He gestured her inside without speaking. The interior made her breath catch. Everything outside suggested decay. Everything inside suggested wealth. Polished concrete floors, modernist furniture, abstract art on exposed brick walls, track lighting that cast strategic shadows. At the center of the space, behind a desk made of black marble and steel, sat a man she recognized, despite never having met him. Dante Kovar. Younger than she expected, maybe 40, sharp features that suggested Eastern European ancestry. Pale blue eyes, so light they looked almost colorless. Dark hair, cut precisely. He wore a navy suit that fit like it was built around his frame. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to command a room. He stood as she entered, old-fashioned manners from a new generation criminal. Dr. Hartley. His accent was barely detectable, refined. Expensive education had smoothed most of it away. Thank you for coming. Sloane's throat was dry. I don't understand why I'm here. Dante gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat because her legs weren't entirely steady. He settled back into his own chair and slid a folder across the marble surface. Inside was her entire financial destruction, documented in brutal detail. Every loan, every missed payment, every threatening letter, collection agency transfers, interest calculations, the complete history of how she'd saved her brother's life and destroyed her own. I own this now, Dante said simply. All of it. The room felt too warm. What do you want? That depends on what you're willing to offer. Sloane's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. She was a former surgical resident with no money and a suspended career. What could a crime lord possibly want from her? Dante pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, turned it to face her. The photo showed a boy, 12 years old, maybe 13, dark hair, the same pale blue eyes as the man across from her. Thin, too thin. The kind of thinness that comes from illness, not adolescence. My son, Dante said. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite emotion, more like the ghost of it. Lucas. Brilliant child. His mother died giving birth to him. Complications the doctors assured me were impossible. Your hospital, actually. Presbyterian General. Dr. Patricia Vance was the surgeon. Sloane knew that name. Dr. Vance had been one of her attending physicians during residency. Renowned, demanding, meticulous. She'd left Presbyterian General years ago under circumstances no one discussed openly. I'm sorry for your loss, Sloane said carefully. Dante's jaw tightened. Lucas has the same condition your brother had, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Genetic lottery, they tell me. He's been on the transplant waiting list for 8 months. His condition is deteriorating. He paused, looked directly at her. And I've learned, through considerable resources, that the transplant committee has concerns about placing a viable heart with a family like mine. The implications settled over the room like toxic gas. They're blocking him because of who you are, Sloane said. Not officially. There are always reasons, medical criteria, ethical considerations, but yes, my son is being denied a life-saving transplant because his father is me. Sloane's medical training warred with her sense of justice. The transplant system was supposed to be objective, based on medical need, compatibility, time on the list, not family background. But she also knew the reality. Committees were made of people. People had biases, and a criminal's son made everyone uncomfortable. "What do you want from me?" she asked again. Dante pulled out another folder, this one, thicker. He opened it to reveal medical records, equipment specifications, salary projections. "I want you to become Lucas's personal physician. Live in, full-time. Keep him alive until a heart becomes available. Navigate the medical bureaucracy. Be present for the transplant. Oversee his recovery, however long that takes." Sloan stared at him. "I can't I'm not even currently practicing. My residency is suspended. I don't have privileges at any hospital. I can't." "Your debt disappears. Completely. Today." Dante's voice was calm, factual. "And when my son is healthy, you walk away with $2 million and a clean slate. No obligations, no strings." The number was so large, it didn't compute. $2 million. More money than she'd earn in a decade of surgical practice. Her debt erased like it never existed. Her license could be fully reinstated. She could finish her residency, build the career she'd sacrificed. "And if I say no?" Dante's expression didn't change. "Then I proceed with legal collection. Your medical license becomes a target. Your brother's transplant. I've already discovered some interesting irregularities in how it was financed. Nothing that would affect his health, but perhaps his legal standing. Felix is doing well at State University, isn't he? Graduating this spring?" The threat was crystal clear. Refuse, and he'd destroy what little she had left, including Felix's future. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" Sloan whispered. Dante stood, extended his hand across the desk. "Dr. Hartley, my word is the only currency in my world that holds absolute value. Break it, and I have nothing. I need you to save my son. You need your life back. We both understand the cost of family. The question is, are you willing to pay it?" Sloan stared at his outstretched hand. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong. Working for a criminal, living in his house, becoming complicit in whatever darkness surrounded him. But the alternative was drowning, slowly, watching Felix's future collapse along with hers, spending the rest of her life running from a debt she could never escape. She thought about Felix's face when she told him she'd taken a leave of absence from the hospital, the way he'd tried to hide his disappointment, how he blamed himself for her sacrifice even though she'd insisted it was her choice. She thought about the Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm. Wasn't letting a child die because of who his father was a form of harm? Sloan reached out and shook Dante's hand. His grip was firm, warm, human. "I have one question," she said. "Ask. What really happened to your wife?" Dante's expression froze. He released her hand, walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the warehouse district. Lights from the city reflected in the glass. "Dr. Patricia Vance told me it was a routine complication, hemorrhaging during delivery. She said she did everything possible." His voice was quiet, controlled. "But 6 months ago, I found her private notes from that surgery. Would you like to know what they said?" Before Sloan could answer, Dante's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. His face went white. "Lucas just collapsed at school. The ambulance is taking him to Presbyterian General. Your hospital. We leave now." The drive to the hospital shattered every traffic law. Dante's driver navigated the city like it was a battlefield, weaving through intersections, ignoring red lights. Dante sat in the back seat next to Sloan, silent except for the call he made to someone named Vincent. Instructions delivered in rapid sentences. "Have the legal paperwork ready. Authorization for Dr. Hartley to act as private consulting physician. Move the money. Now. Sloane's mind raced. She hadn't been back to Presbyterian General since her leave of absence, hadn't seen her former colleagues, hadn't faced the administrators who'd politely destroyed her career. They arrived at the emergency entrance. Dante moved like violence barely contained. Through the automatic doors, past the triage desk without stopping, a security guard tried to intercept him. One look at Dante's face and the guard stepped aside. Trauma Bay 3. Lucas was already there. 12 years old, unconscious, skin gray, monitors screaming. The attending physician was Dr. Marcus Grid, one of the doctors who'd pushed hardest for Sloane's leave of absence. "What's his status?" Dante's voice cut through the chaos. Dr. Grid looked up, recognized Dante. His expression shifted from medical focus to barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Kovar, your son is experiencing severe arrhythmia. We're working to stabilize him. Dr. Hartley will be overseeing his care." Grid's eyes found Sloane. Shock, then anger. "Dr. Hartley isn't credentialed here anymore. She has no authority." "She does now." Dante pulled out his phone, made a call. 30 seconds of conversation. He handed the phone to Dr. Grid. Whatever the person on the other end said made Grid's face go red. He handed the phone back. "Fine, but this is highly irregular." Sloane stepped to Lucas's bedside, checked the monitors. Heart rate erratic, blood pressure dropping. She'd seen this pattern before with Felix. The heart was failing, compensating, about to give up. "We need to push adenosine," she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. 6 milligrams, rapid 1V push. Dr. Grid bristled. "I don't take orders from suspended residents." "Then take them from me." Dante's voice was quiet. Dangerous. "Do what she says. Now." The nurse looked between them, decided Sloane was the safer bet, drew up the medication. Sloane administered it herself, pushed the plunger, watched the monitors. For 5 seconds, nothing. Lucas's heart rhythm flatlined on the screen, then reset, steadied. The alarms stopped screaming. Sloane exhaled. "Get him to ICU. Continuous monitoring. I want cardiology consulted immediately." Dr. Grid looked like he wanted to argue, decided against it. The trauma team moved Lucas toward the elevators. Dante stood perfectly still, watching his son's unconscious face disappear behind closing doors. When he finally moved, it was to face Sloane. "Thank you." 2 words, but the weight behind them could have crushed buildings. Within an hour, the hospital administrator arrived, breathless, apologetic. Sloane was issued temporary credentials as a private consulting physician, unlimited access to Lucas's care. Dr. Grid was reassigned to other patients. Sloane realized Dante didn't just have influence at Presbyterian General. He owned part of it. Through shell corporations and financial networks she couldn't begin to trace. His reach went deeper than anyone suspected. Lucas was moved to a private ICU room. Sloane reviewed his medical history. 8 months on the transplant list, condition deteriorating faster than projected, multiple episodes of arrhythmia, medications losing effectiveness. Without a transplant soon, weeks at most, maybe days. She sat beside his bed, monitored his vitals, adjusted medications. Remembered doing this for Felix, the helpless terror of watching someone you love balanced on the edge of death. Dante appeared in the doorway. He'd been making calls, arranging things. When he entered, he moved to the other side of Lucas's bed, touched his son's hand with a gentleness that contradicted everything Sloane knew about him. "He looks like his mother," Dante said quietly. "Same eyes, same way of tilting his head when he's thinking. Tell me about her." Nadia was a violinist, first chair with the city orchestra. We met at a charity gala. She was performing. I was there because legitimate businessmen attend charity galas. A ghost of a smile. She knew what I was. Didn't care. Said everyone deserves beauty in their life, even criminals. She sounds remarkable. She was. Dante's jaw worked. When she got pregnant, she was terrified. Not of being a mother, of the delivery. Her own mother died in childbirth. Irrational fear, the doctors said. Modern medicine had advanced. The risks were minimal. Sloane waited. She went into labor 3 weeks early. Complications immediately. Hemorrhaging. Dr. Vance performed an emergency cesarean. Saved Lucas. Lost Nadia. Told me she'd made every effort. That sometimes medicine fails despite our best intentions. But you don't believe that. Dante looked at her. I believed it for 12 years. Then I found Dr. Vance's private surgical notes. She'd kept copies outside the official medical records. Insurance, maybe, or guilt. What did they say? Before Dante could answer, the door opened. A woman in her 50s entered. Tall, silver hair pulled back, expensive suit. Sloane recognized her instantly. Dr. Patricia Vance. She froze when she saw Sloane. What is she doing here? Dante smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Dr. Vance. How convenient. We were just about to discuss what really happened in that operating room 12 years ago. The air in the ICU room turned electric. Dr. Vance's carefully maintained composure cracked for just a moment before she rebuilt it. Professional. Controlled. But Sloane saw the fear underneath. I'm here on routine committee business, Vance said. Her voice was steady, practiced. Reviewing Lucas's transplant status. Dante gestured to the empty chair. Please, sit. Let's review together. Vance remained standing. This is inappropriate. I don't discuss patient cases with the patient's father. Dante's voice was soft, deadly. Or with criminals. Be specific, doctor. Sloane watched the power dynamic shift. Vance was renowned, connected, influential. But in this room, facing Dante Kovar, she was the one off balance. I've been investigating my wife's death, Dante continued. Conversational, like discussing the weather. For 3 years. Private investigators, medical experts. I've recovered records that were supposedly destroyed. Restored, deleted surgical footage. Built quite a comprehensive file. Vance's face went pale. Dante pulled out his phone, scrolled, turned it to show Vance. Sloane couldn't see the screen, but she watched Vance's expression crumble. You made a choice during Nadia's delivery, Dante said. When complications arose, you prioritized saving the baby over the mother, without consulting me, without giving Nadia a chance to fight. I followed protocol, Vance said. Her voice shook. When faced with impossible decisions, we prioritized the most viable. You prioritized what was convenient. What protected you from liability? What allowed you to claim you'd saved a life even as you let another one bleed out? Sloane's medical training kicked in. She'd studied these scenarios, obstetric emergencies. Sometimes there were no good choices, just terrible ones. The attending surgeon made calls based on seconds of assessment. Vance might have genuinely believed she was making the right decision, but then Sloane noticed something in Lucas's medical file. She pulled it closer, reviewed the transplant committee notes, dates, recommendations, denials. You've blocked Lucas from transplant, Sloane said. Everyone turned to her. 4 times in 8 months, he's been passed over despite being the highest priority match. The committee notes cite ethical concerns and family stability questions. You wrote those recommendations. Vance's jaw tightened. The transplant system requires what? Punishing a child for his father's sins? Sloane stood, moved closer. You're letting him die. Deliberately. Because you can't touch Dante directly, so you're killing his son slowly through bureaucratic murder. How dare you? How dare I? Sloane's voice rose, 2 years of suppressed rage boiling over. I sacrificed everything to save my brother, destroyed my career, my life. And you're using your position to let a child die because you hold a grudge against his father? Dante raised his hand. Silence fell immediately. He looked at Vance with an expression that made Sloane's skin crawl. I've already filed complaints with the state medical board, Dante said quietly. Documentation of your transplant committee manipulation, financial records showing pharmaceutical kickbacks for organ priority adjustments, evidence of accepting consultation fees from wealthy families in exchange for moving their loved ones up the waiting list. Would you like me to continue? Vance's composure shattered. You can't prove any of that. I can. I have. The investigation begins Monday. But I'm willing to make this disappear. All of it. In exchange for one thing. What? Lucas gets the next compatible heart. No delays, no ethical concerns, no committee interference. You personally ensure he's prioritized appropriately based on medical need alone. Vance laughed. It sounded broken. And if I refuse? Then you lose your medical license, your reputation, your legacy, and my son still dies. We both lose. Or you do the right thing for once in your career and save a child's life. The silence stretched. Sloane could hear Lucas's monitors beeping, steady, fragile. Vance looked at the boy in the bed. Something shifted in her expression. Regret, maybe, or just calculation. I'll review his case, she said finally. But I can't make promises about donor availability. That's beyond my control. Of course. Dante's smile was cold. I only ask for fairness. Surely that's not too much to expect from our medical system. Vance left without another word. Her footsteps echoed down the ICU hallway. Sloane turned to Dante. Was any of that true? The evidence against her? Some of it. Enough to make her worry. The rest I'll manufacture if needed. That's necessary. You wanted to work within the system, Dr. Hartley. The system failed. Now, we use other methods. Before Sloane could respond, Lucas stirred. His eyes opened, unfocused, searching. They landed on Dante. Dad? Dante was at his side instantly, took his hand. I'm here. Did I scare you? Absolutely terrified. Lucas's eyes found Sloane. You're the doctor who saved your brother. Dad showed me the news articles from when it happened. You gave up everything for family. Sloane's throat tightened. Family is worth it. That's why he chose you. Lucas's voice was weak but certain. Because you understand. A nurse entered, checked vitals, made notes, left with concerned glances at the unusual arrangement. Sloane reviewed Lucas's charts through the night. Dante stayed. Reluctant to leave. Around 3 a.m, he finally spoke. The surgery notes I found from Nadia's delivery. They showed she was hemorrhaging, yes. But they also showed Dr. Vance had time. Not much, but enough to try more aggressive intervention. She chose not to. Do you know why? Sloane shook her head. I'd refused to donate to her research foundation. $50,000. She'd asked, personally. I said no, called it a shakedown. She told me I'd regret not supporting medical advancement. Dante's voice was empty. 36 hours later, my wife was dead. Coincidence, maybe. Or maybe not. You can't know. I know she's been blocking Lucas from Transplant for 8 months. I know she's using her position to play God. I know my son is dying because I made an enemy of the wrong person 12 years ago. Sloan wanted to argue, to insist the medical system had safeguards, but she'd lived in it, seen its failures, experienced its cruelty firsthand. "We'll get him a heart," she said. "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm not Dr. Vance, and I'll burn this whole hospital down before I let your son die because of politics." Dante looked at her. Really looked. "You mean that?" "I do." Something changed in that moment. An understanding formed. Not friendship, not trust, but alliance. Two people who'd been failed by the same system, fighting for the people they loved. Morning came. Lucas stabilized enough for discharge, but Dante made a decision. He can't stay in the hospital. Too vulnerable. Too many people who'd rather see him dead than transplanted. "We're going home, and you're coming with us." Sloan hesitated. She'd agreed to be Lucas's physician, but living in Dante Kovar's house? That was different. Deeper. More complicit. "The contract," Dante reminded her gently. "You shook my hand. In my world, that's binding." He was right. She'd made her choice in that warehouse. Everything that followed was consequence. The Kovar estate sat 30 miles outside the city, gated, guarded. The house itself was massive. Modern architecture, glass and steel, beautiful in a cold, precise way. Staff appeared and disappeared like ghosts. No one made eye contact with Sloan. She was shown to a guest wing, 3 rooms, bedroom with a king-size bed and windows overlooking gardens, private bathroom with heated floors, a sitting area with bookshelves and a fireplace, nicer than anywhere she'd lived in 5 years. Her few possessions looked pathetic in the space. 2 suitcases, a backpack, the accumulated remains of a collapsed life. A knock on the door. One of Dante's men, silent. He gestured for her to follow. The medical suite made her stop breathing. A full room converted to hospital standards. Cardiac monitors, defibrillator, medication refrigerator, IV stands, oxygen. Everything she might need for emergency intervention. Dante had been planning this for months, maybe longer. She found photographs on the desk, recent, of her. Walking to the vet clinic, leaving her apartment, meeting Felix for coffee, surveillance photos. "I needed to be sure." Dante's voice came from behind her. Sloan spun. "How long have you been watching me?" "Since I learned Felix had the same condition as Lucas. I researched every successful HCM transplant in the region, found your brother's case, investigated how you'd managed to afford it, discovered your debt, your desperation, your willingness to sacrifice everything for family." "You've been stalking me." "I've been preparing. There's a difference." Dante moved into the room, checked equipment with the casual knowledge of someone who'd spent years in hospitals. "I needed a physician who understood what was at stake, who wouldn't give up when things got difficult, who had something to lose if they failed." "So you manipulated me." "I gave you a choice. You could have refused, walked away, accepted the consequences." "You threatened Felix." "I stated facts. What would happen if you refused? But I didn't force your hand, Dr. Hartley. You chose this." He was right. She hated that he was right. Lucas appeared in the doorway, changed into comfortable clothes, looking younger without hospital equipment attached. "Can I show you something?" Sloan followed him to his room, walls covered in bookshelves, medical texts, anatomy, cardiology, Gray's Anatomy, Netter's Atlas. Books meant for medical students, not children. "I've been studying," Lucas said. "If I understand how hearts work, maybe I won't be so scared of mine stopping." Sloan picked up one of the books, margins filled with notes in neat handwriting, diagrams copied and labeled. This child had been teaching himself cardiac medicine. "What scares you most?" she asked. Lucas sat on his bed, small, fragile. "Forgetting what my mom looked like. Dad doesn't talk about her much. I think it hurts too much. But I'm scared that if I die, no one will remember both of us. Like we'll both just disappear." Sloan sat beside him. "Your dad won't let you be forgotten, and neither will I. Promise? Promise." They spent the afternoon reviewing his medical texts. Sloan corrected misconceptions, explained complex concepts in ways a 12-year-old could understand, watched Lucas's fear transform into curiosity. Dinner was awkward. Formal dining room, staff serving courses, Dante at the head of the table, Sloan and Lucas on either side. Conversations stilted, professional. Afterward, Sloan called Felix, told him she'd taken a live-in position with a private family. Good pay, stable, didn't mention Dante or the debt or any of it. Felix was happy, excited for her. His sister finally had real work again. The guilt crushed her. That night, Sloan couldn't sleep, explored the house quietly, found Dante's study, door unlocked. Inside were filing cabinets. She shouldn't have looked. Did anyway. Files on Dr. Vance, on hospital administrators, on transplant committee members, financial records, surveillance photos. Years of investigation. Then she found her own file. Thick, comprehensive, everything about her life documented, but also things she'd never told anyone. Her mother's autopsy report from the ferry accident, her father's gambling debts that had preceded their deaths, private details no one should have known, a note in Dante's handwriting. Motivated by family protection, vulnerable to threats against brother, ethical foundation strong but breakable under pressure. Perfect. She'd been profiled, psychologically evaluated, selected like a tool for a specific job. Footsteps behind her. Lasone turned. Dante stood in the doorway, no surprise in his expression. "I knew you'd find it eventually," he said. "You analyzed me like a target. I analyzed you like someone whose choices needed to align with mine. I don't make deals without knowing exactly who I'm dealing with." Sloane's hands shook with rage. "I'm not just a desperate doctor. I'm a person with autonomy, with principles that hurt you more than they help you. I know." Dante entered the study, closed the door. "I know about the under-the-table work, the immigrant physicals, the times you bent medical ethics to survive. But I also know you never actually crossed the line into real malpractice. You have boundaries, Dr. Hartley, even when they destroy you. That's why you're here. Because I'm controllable. Because you're trustworthy. There's a difference." Sloan wanted to scream, to walk out, to take her clean slate and disappear. But Lucas's face kept appearing in her mind, that sick child who'd done nothing wrong, who was being punished for his father's choices. "What happens if I fail?" she asked. "If Lucas doesn't get a heart in time?" Dante's expression was unreadable. "Then we both live with that failure. But you'll still walk away with your clean slate. I keep my promises, even the ones that cost me everything." Something in his voice made Sloan pause. This wasn't manipulation. This was truth. Dante Kovar, criminal, killer, monster, was standing in front of her completely vulnerable. His son's life in her hands. No backup plan, no alternative. "Why me?" she asked. "Really?" "Because the transplant system failed. The hospital failed. The law failed. Every legitimate path I tried led nowhere. You were my last option. A desperate doctor who understood what it meant to sacrifice everything for family. Someone who wouldn't quit when things got hard because you'd already survived the worst. The honesty was unexpected, raw. A sound from upstairs, Lucas calling out. Both of them moved immediately, ran to his room. He was sitting up in bed, awake. "Sorry, bad dream. I'm okay." Dante sat on the edge of the bed, checked his son with the practiced ease of a parent who'd spent years in hospitals. What was the dream about? "Mom. She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear her." Sloan watched Dante's carefully constructed control fracture, just for a moment. He pulled Lucas into a hug. "She'd be proud of you," Dante said quietly. "How strong you've been. How brave." "I don't feel brave. I feel scared all the time." Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's being terrified and continuing anyway. Sloan left them alone, returned to her room, lay awake thinking about the impossible situation she'd fallen into. A crime lord, a dying child, a corrupt doctor, medical debt that had been both her prison and her key to escape. Morning came. She found Lucas in the medical suite. He'd taken his own vitals, documented everything in a notebook. "I figured I should help," he said. They fell into a routine: medication management, blood pressure checks, diet monitoring. Lucas was a compliant patient, asked intelligent questions, followed instructions precisely. Days passed. Lucas seemed stable, hopeful. Then the call came. Sloan was reviewing lab results when Dante burst into the medical suite. "They have a heart. Perfect match. Lucas's blood type, compatible size. Surgery scheduled in 6 hours." The hope was blinding, painful. They rushed to Presbyterian General, Lucas vibrating with nervous energy, asking questions, making Sloan promise she'd be there when he woke up. But when they arrived, Dr. Marcus Grid was waiting. His expression killed the hope instantly. "There's a problem," he said. "The donor family specifically requested their loved one's organs not go to anyone associated with the Kovar family. The heart is being allocated to another recipient. Lucas remains on the waiting list." The hallway seemed to tilt. Sloan watched Lucas's face crumble, watched hope die in a child's eyes, watched Dante transform into something barely human. "That's not how the system works," Sloan said. Her voice sounded distant. "Donor families can't exclude recipients based on they can make requests, and in cases where multiple recipients match, those requests are considered. The committee decided to honor it." The committee. Dante's voice was death. "Dr. Vance's committee." Grid said nothing, which was confirmation enough. Lucas made a sound, not quite a cry, more like something breaking. He turned and walked away, down the hallway, through doors. Gone. Sloan ran after him, found him in a hospital stairwell, collapsed on the steps, sobbing. She sat beside him, didn't speak, just stayed. "I'm going to die because my dad is a criminal," Lucas finally said. "That's not fair." "No, it's not. I didn't choose this. I didn't ask to be born into his family." "I know. Why did they get to punish me for what he did?" Sloan had no answer, because the truth was ugly. The system was broken. People in power played God, and children died because of it. When they returned to the main corridor, Dante was gone. Grid explained he'd left, needed to make calls. Sloan took Lucas home. He didn't speak during the drive, just stared out the window. When they arrived at the estate, he went straight to his room, locked the door. Sloan found Dante in his study. He stood at the window, hands in his pockets, perfectly still. "I'm going to destroy her," he said quietly. "Dr. Vance, the committee, everyone who decided my son's life matters less than their moral judgment. Dante, they want to see me as a monster? Fine. I'll show them what monsters do when you threaten their children. Sloane approached carefully. That won't save Lucas. No, but it might save the next child and the one after that. She understood then. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about burning down a system so corrupt it let children die to make political points. What if there's another way? Sloane asked. Dante turned. What way? We expose them. Not through violence, through evidence. We show the world exactly what Dr. Vance and her committee are doing. Make it so public, so documented. They can't hide behind ethics and protocols. How? Sloane thought about the files in his study, the investigations, the surveillance. You've been gathering evidence for years. We use it, all of it. Show the pattern, the wealthy families who get priority, the kickbacks, the manipulation. Make it impossible to ignore. Dante considered this. It won't be fast. No, but it might actually work. They spent the next 3 days building a case. Sloane used her medical knowledge to identify irregularities in transplant records. Dante provided financial documentation, surveillance footage, recorded committee meetings. The picture that emerged was damning. Dr. Vance had been manipulating the transplant system for over a decade. Wealthy families paid consultation fees that somehow resulted in their loved ones moving up the waiting list. Poor patients and those from controversial backgrounds got delayed, lost priority, died waiting. Lucas joined them. Despite his heartbreak, he wanted to help. Reviewed documents, highlighted inconsistencies. This 12-year-old child analyzing the system that was letting him die. If we do this, Lucas said, other kids won't have to wait like me.
Right? That's the goal, Sloane confirmed. Then it's worth it, even if I don't make it.
The statement destroyed something in Sloane. This child had more courage than most adults she knew. They compiled everything into a comprehensive file, sent copies to federal healthcare fraud investigators, state medical licensing boards, a trusted investigative journalist at the major newspaper. Then they waited. 48 hours later, the news broke. Front page. Transplant system corruption exposed. Dr. Patricia Vance arrested on healthcare fraud charges. The story detailed everything. Financial kickbacks, priority manipulation, donor family coaching, 14 counts of healthcare fraud. The investigation was expanding to include other committee members. Presbyterian General went into crisis mode. Administrators scrambling. The entire transplant committee suspended pending investigation. Sloane watched the coverage with Lucas and Dante, waiting for something, anything. The call came at 7 in the evening. Transplant coordinator. Different voice than before, younger, nervous. We have a heart for Lucas. Perfect match, but there's a complication. Dr. Vance was supposed to be lead transplant surgeon. We need a replacement team immediately. Given the controversy, other surgeons are refusing the case. They don't want to be associated with the Kovar name. Sloane's blood went cold. Dante looked at her. Can you do it? She hadn't performed a transplant in 2 years, had never been lead surgeon, was only a resident. But Lucas was running out of time. I'll need an assisting team I can trust. Dante smiled. I can make that happen. Within 2 hours, Dante had assembled the best cardiac surgical team in the region. Nurses, anesthesiologist, surgical assistant, all expensive, all discreet, all willing to work with a suspended resident as lead surgeon if the price was right. Sloane met with Lucas before prep. He was trying to be brave, failing. Are you scared? He asked. Absolutely, Sloane said honestly. That's not very comforting. Would you prefer I lied? Lucas smiled weakly. No, I like that you tell me the truth. Then here's more truth. I'm scared because I care about you, because you matter, because if something goes wrong, I'll never forgive myself. But I'm also the best chance you have, and I will fight for your life with everything I am. Promise? Promise. He hugged her. Small, fragile. Trust in a gesture. If something goes wrong, Lucas whispered, tell my dad I'm not mad at him for any of it. He was just trying to save me. Sloane's throat closed. Nothing's going wrong. But she held him tighter anyway. Scrubbing in felt like coming home, the ritual of it. Soap, water, sterile protocol. Sloane's hands shook as she washed. 2 years since she'd done this. 2 years of veterinary work and desperation. But the moment she entered the operating room, muscle memory took over. The team was professional, efficient, no judgment about her suspended status, just focused on the task. Lucas lay on the table, anesthetized. Monitors beeping steady. The anesthesiologist nodded, ready. Sloane made the first incision. Opening a chest cavity never got easier. The vulnerability of it, skin, muscle, bone, all the layers protecting the most vital organ. She worked with precision learned through years of training. Rib spreader, careful separation, and there it was, Lucas's heart, enlarged, struggling, dying. Bypass, Sloane said. The team moved in synchronized rhythm, cannulation, connecting Lucas to the heart-lung machine, taking over his circulation while they worked. Pressure's dropping, the anesthesiologist said. Sloane's stomach clenched. How much? 80/40, still dropping. A complication. Blood pressure collapsing during bypass connection. She had seconds to decide. Abort the surgery and Lucas would never get another chance. Push through and he might die on the table. Continue bypass, Sloane said. Her voice was steady even as her heart raced. Push fluids, vasopressors if needed. The team responded. Minutes stretched into hours. Blood pressure stabilized. Crisis managed. The donor heart arrived, preserved in sterile solution. Perfect, healthy, strong. Sloane held it and thought about the family who donated. The life that ended so Lucas's could continue. The impossible weight of that sacrifice. Let's give him a chance, she said quietly. Removing Lucas's diseased heart felt like dismantling something sacred. Each connection severed carefully. Vessels clamped. The old heart lifted out. 12 years of struggling, of keeping a child alive despite its flaws. Gone. The new heart went in, connecting great vessels, aorta, pulmonary artery, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Every suture had to be perfect. One mistake and the whole thing failed. Hours passed. Sloane's back ached, her hands cramped, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Finally, the last connection complete. Time to take Lucas off bypass. See if the new heart would work. Ready? She asked the team. Nods all around. Wean bypass. The machine slowed, blood flow transferring from artificial support to the transplanted heart. Monitors watching, waiting. The heart sat motionless. Beautiful. Dead. Sloane's stomach dropped. Nothing, the anesthesiologist said. Unnecessary observation. Charge paddles, Sloane ordered. 200 joules. The defibrillator whined, charged. She placed the internal paddles directly on the heart. Clear. Shock delivered. The heart jumped, settled. Nothing. Again, 300. Shock, jump. Nothing. The team looked at her, waiting for orders, wondering if they should call it, declare failure. Sloane stared at that perfect heart, thought about Lucas asking her to promise, thought about Dante waiting outside, thought about a 12-year-old child who'd studied cardiac medicine to understand his own death. Again, she said, 360. Maximum charge, last chance. Shock, the heart jumped, quivered, and beat. Once, twice. Steady, strong, perfect rhythm. The monitors confirmed it. Heart rate 60, 70, 80. Blood pressure rising. The new heart was working. Sloan exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Close him up. The team moved efficiently. Wires, drains, closing the sternum, skin, bandages, standard post-op procedure. Lucas was moved to recovery, still unconscious, but alive, heart beating strong. Sloan removed her surgical gown, gloves, mask, walked to the waiting room where Dante had been stationed for 9 hours. He stood when she entered, face blank, bracing for devastation. She nodded. Dante closed his eyes, exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 12 years. The surgery was successful. Heart's beating perfectly. He's in recovery. Dante sat down, covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. The most feared criminal in the city, crying in a hospital waiting room. Sloan gave him privacy, went to check on Lucas. He woke slowly, groggy from anesthesia, confused, touched his chest where bandages covered the incision. Did it work? His voice was rough from intubation. You have a new heart. It's beating perfectly. Tears rolled down his face. I'm going to live? Yes. Really? Really. He started sobbing. Relief and fear and joy all mixed together. Sloan held his hand while he cried. Dante appeared in the doorway. Lucas saw him, reached out. Father and son holding each other, both crying, both alive. Sloan stepped back, gave them space. Watched a crime lord transform into just a father. Watched a sick child become a survivor. Days passed. Lucas recovered faster than expected, color returning to his face, energy levels rising. The transformation was remarkable, like watching someone come back from the dead. 1 week post-surgery, he was ready for discharge. Dante handed Sloan an envelope. Inside, documentation showing her debt completely cleared. Every dollar. Gone. Another envelope. Cashier's check for $2 million. Our agreement is fulfilled, Dante said. You saved my son. You're free to go. Sloan stared at the money, everything she'd wanted for 2 years. Her fresh start, her clean slate. Freedom. But looking at Lucas, laughing with nurses, at Dante, watching his son like he was seeing him for the first time, she realized something had changed. This wasn't just a transaction anymore. Somewhere between medical crises and late-night conversations and fighting a corrupt system together, they'd become something else. Family. Not by blood, but by choice. Before she could speak, FBI agents entered the room. 6 of them, armed, serious. Dante Kovar, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The Transplant investigation exposed financial networks connected to your organization. You have the right to remain silent. They handcuffed him, right there, in front of his son who'd just gotten a heart transplant a week ago. Lucas screamed, tried to get out of bed. Sloan held him back, protected his chest incision. Dad! Dante looked at his son. No fear in his expression, just love. It's okay, Lucas. Be strong. Dr. Hartley will take care of you. No, you can't. They can't. But they could, and did. Dante Kovar was led away in handcuffs, the most powerful criminal in the city reduced to just another prisoner. Sloan held Lucas while he cried, monitored his vitals, made sure the stress didn't damage his new heart. But inside she was reeling. The investigation they'd started to save Lucas had given federal prosecutors access to hospital financial records. Those records had exposed Dante's money laundering operations, shell corporations, illegal transfers, everything. They'd saved Lucas and destroyed Dante. The irony was vicious. Federal prosecutors came to interview Sloan, wanted to know about her arrangement with Dante, the debt forgiveness, the payment, whether she'd been complicit in any criminal activity. She told them the truth. All of it. Her desperation, the offer, becoming Lucas's physician, the transplant. They seemed satisfied she'd been a victim of circumstance rather than an accomplice. But they also told her Dante was facing life in prison, multiple counts, overwhelming evidence, unless he cooperated, testified against his organization, named names, gave them everything. Sloan visited him in federal custody. Dante looked strange in an orange jumpsuit, smaller somehow, less terrifying. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "The investigation. If I hadn't pushed to expose Vance, then Lucas would be dead. And Dr. Vance would still be manipulating the transplant system, and dozens of other children would die waiting." Dante leaned back. "I've been a criminal my entire adult life. I've hurt people, ruined lives. This was always coming. But my son is alive. That's worth any price." "They offered you a deal, 10 years if you testify." "I know. Lucas needs his father. He just got his life back. Don't take yourself away from him." Dante's expression hardened. "What kind of father would I be if I taught him that betrayal is acceptable when it's convenient? I chose this life. I accept the consequences. He's 12 years old. He needs you. He needs someone who'll give him a normal life, away from all of this. Someone who chose to save him not because of money or threats, but because they care." Sloan realized what he was asking. "No, I can't. I'm not his family." "You saved his life twice. Once on the operating table, once by exposing the system that would have let him die. Save him a third time. Give him a future I can't. Dante, I'm arranging legal guardianship, trusts, everything he'll need, financially secure, good schools, normal life. But he needs a guardian who isn't in prison, someone he trusts, someone who understands what it means to sacrifice for family." "I can't raise a child. I barely have my own life together." "You have $2 million, a clean slate, a medical career to rebuild, and a child who loves you, who trusts you, who wants to stay with you." "He said that?" "He did." Sloan's world tilted. She'd come into this thinking it was temporary, a job, a transaction, but Lucas had become real. His laughter, his questions, his courage. The idea of walking away from him felt impossible. But becoming his guardian? That was permanent, life-changing, terrifying. "Think about it," Dante said. "You have time, but not much. They're transferring me to federal prison next week. Guardianship needs to be established before then." The visit ended. Sloan drove back to the estate, found Lucas in his room, reading. He looked up when she entered. "Is Dad okay?" "He's strong. He'll be fine." "Are you leaving?" The question was so direct it hurt. "What makes you think that?" "You have your money. Your debt is gone. You don't have to stay anymore." Sloan sat on his bed. "What do you want?" "I want my dad to come home. But that's not going to happen, is it?" "Probably not for a long time." Lucas nodded, processing. "Then I want to stay with you, if that's okay. You're the only person who's ever chosen me over everything else." "Dad chose me over his freedom. You chose saving me over your safety. I trust you. The simple honesty shattered her. I've never been a parent, Sloane said. I barely know how to take care of myself most days. You kept me alive when I was dying. You fought a whole hospital system for me. You performed surgery you weren't supposed to do because no one else would. That seems like pretty good parenting. Sloane laughed despite everything. When did you get so wise? I've had a lot of time to think. Being sick does that. She made her decision then, not because Dante asked, not because of obligation, but because this child had become hers somewhere between medical checks and late-night conversations and shared fear. Okay, she said. I'll talk to the lawyers. We'll make it official. Lucas hugged her. Thank you. Legal guardianship was established 3 days later. Dante signed papers from federal custody, transferring all parental rights, setting up trusts, ensuring Lucas would be financially secure regardless of what happened to the Kovar empire. Felix came to meet Lucas. Sloane's brother was shocked by everything. The house, the situation, the fact that his sister was now guardian to a crime lord's son. But he saw Lucas, saw how they interacted, how Lucas looked at Sloane with trust and affection, how Sloane had transformed from the broken, desperate person she'd been into someone with purpose. You're good at this, Felix said. Being a mom. Guardian, Sloane corrected. Mom, Felix insisted. That's what you are to him. Maybe he was right. Sloane made decisions. Used part of the $2 million to buy a house, not the Kovar estate, somewhere normal, suburban, good schools, 3 bedrooms, one for her, one for Lucas, one for Felix when he visited. Donated $1 million to a foundation for families struggling with medical debt. Let other people avoid the hell she'd survived. Returned to medical residency. Presbyterian General offered her position back. After the corruption scandal, they were desperate to rebuild credibility. A resident who'd exposed the system and saved a child? Good press. Life became routine. School for Lucas, hospital shifts for Sloane. Felix graduated college, started his own life. But they remained close. Family dinners, holidays. Normal. Once a month, Sloane and Lucas visited Dante in federal prison. He looked different there, softer. He taught inmates to read, attended therapy, faced who he really was without the power and violence. You doing well, Dante said during one visit, looking at Lucas, seeing a healthy child instead of a dying one. I made the basketball team, Lucas said. JV, but still. Basketball, like your mother's side of the family. She'd be proud. They talked about school, friends, normal things. Dante soaked up every detail like they were precious. After visits, driving home, Lucas would be quiet, processing, missing his father, grateful for his life, both things existing simultaneously. 6 months after the transplant, Lucas's checkup was perfect, no rejection, heart functioning beautifully. The doctor called it miraculous. 1 year later, Lucas was thriving, growing, laughing, playing sports, being a normal teenager. The transplant scar on his chest, just another part of who he was. Sloane finished her residency, became a full cardiac surgeon, specialized in transplants, helped other families navigate the system, made sure no child got denied because of politics or corruption. During one of their prison visits, Lucas brought something, a letter from the donor family. They'd finally agreed to meet him through the transplant coordinator, wanted to know the person who received their son's heart. They said, knowing he's alive, that his heart is keeping someone alive, makes the pain easier, Lucas said. His voice shook. I'm meeting them next month. Dante cried. Actually cried. Remember something, Lucas. You were given a second chance, not just at life, that choosing what kind of person you become. Don't waste it.
I won't, Dad. And remember the people who saved you. Dr. Hartley, the donor family, even the broken system that eventually worked. Remember all of it. Let it make you better. The visit ended. Driving home, Lucas was thoughtful.
Do you regret it? He asked. Everything that happened? The debt? Meeting Dad? All of it? Sloan considered. I regret the system that made it necessary, the corruption, the desperation. But I don't regret you. Even though you didn't choose this? Not really? I chose to shake your father's hand. I chose to fight for you. I chose to become your guardian. Maybe the circumstances were forced, but the important choices? Those were mine. Lucas smiled. That's a good way to think about it. They arrived home. Felix was visiting, had cooked dinner. The three of them ate together, talked, laughed. Normal. Ordinary. Beautiful. Later, after Lucas went to bed, Sloan sat in her study. The study in her house. Her house that she owned, debt-free. She still had the envelope, the one with her debt cancellation papers, kept it in a drawer as a reminder. Not of what she'd escaped, of what she'd gained. You couldn't put a price on family, but you could pay any cost to protect it. The debt that nearly destroyed her became the bridge to saving a life. The criminal who threatened her became the father figure who showed her what unconditional sacrifice looked like. The sick boy became her son, not through biology, through choice. And sometimes, choice was stronger than blood. Sloan thought about where she'd been 19 months ago, drowning in debt, working overnight shifts at a veterinary clinic, eating expired food, dodging collection calls, broken. Now she was a cardiac surgeon, a guardian, a person with purpose. The system still failed people. Medical debt still destroyed lives. Corruption still existed, but she was fighting it, one patient at a time, one family at a time, making sure other people didn't have to make the impossible choices she'd made. Lucas appeared in the doorway. Couldn't sleep. She made space on the couch. He sat beside her. I was thinking about what Dad said, about second chances. Yeah? You got one too, right? When you met us? Sloan considered. I suppose I did. So we saved each other. Kind of. Yeah, kind of. They sat in comfortable silence. This child with a transplanted heart. This woman who'd lost everything and found something better. I love you, Lucas said quietly. I know that's weird to say, but I do. Sloane's throat tightened. I love you too, even though you didn't ask for me. Especially because I didn't ask for you. The best things in life usually aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones that happen anyway. Lucas smiled, leaned against her. Safe, loved, alive. Outside, the city continued. People drowning in debt, systems failing, corruption thriving. But inside this house, 3 people who'd survived impossible odds had built something real, something chosen. Family. 9 more years until Dante's potential release. They'd wait, visit, stay connected. But they'd also live, build futures, create memories. Hope wasn't stupid. It was survival. And sometimes, the devil offered you a deal that saved your soul instead of damning it. Sometimes the most questionable choices led to the most profound redemptions. Sometimes $847,000 in medical debt became the foundation for a family built on sacrifice, trust, and choosing each other every single day. Sloan looked at Lucas. This child who'd taught her what she'd forgotten during all those years drowning in debt. That love wasn't transactional. That family wasn't biology. That second chances existed even in the darkest places. That you could lose everything and still find exactly what you needed. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the systems that fail us and the people who save us, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. There are more stories like this coming. Stories about ordinary people facing impossible choices, about broken systems and unexpected heroes, about the price we pay for love and the redemption we find in the darkest places. Drop a comment below about a time you had to make an impossible choice, or when someone unexpected became your family. Your story might inspire someone else who's drowning right now, wondering if there's any way out. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that even when you're buried under debt, desperation, or impossible choices, there's still hope. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the people we're taught to fear are the ones who understand sacrifice best. Sometimes shaking hands with darkness leads you toward light. See you in the next story.